Public relations can be an effective marketing tool for expanding into new markets, but it does require an investment of time and planning. In this episode, learn from PR speaker Amy Flurry about what areas interior designers should focus on, how to target the right publications, and how to use your PR time wisely. Listen to the full episode today for more insights. Apply now for Business Breakthrough Live. Join us in Denver on November 10th and 11th for actionable training that will help you grow your business. Visit thepearlcollective.com/BBL to learn more about this business-changing experience.
Welcome to the Creative Genius Podcast, Amy. I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey into the design industry. I know it wasn't traditional. You're not an interior designer by trade, but tell us about that.
Correct. Yeah. Well, my entree is through journalism, and I was a journalist and a freelance writer for 20 years, and I wrote about so many interior designers and interior designers who had boutiques. And that's kind of my perspective. So when I decided I'm going to transition into a new season of my professional career, I wrote a book called Recipe for Press. It was in response to just how many coffees I had had with people who wanted to know how to get press on their own. How could they make what I did happen, especially if they didn't have the budget or were not ready yet for a publicist. So as someone on the receiving end of so many pitches, I wrote a book that was basically, this is what every editor everywhere wants to tell you, but they're not going to tell you. These small mistakes can really mean the difference between getting published and not, because it shows the editor that you get it. You understand the reciprocation that goes back and forth when you are doing the dance of pitching a project or pitching a product. And so I wrote that book, Recipe for Press. From there, I got out into the major design centers and markets across the country, speaking to this and sharing the book. And the number one audience that filled the seats were interior designers, and I took note of that. The reason being is because they have more opportunities than any other audience that I've come across, and also because they're operating in beautiful imagery that everyone needs. And so I wrote a second book, Recipe for Press, Designer Edition, in 2018. And for a decade now I've been advising interior design firms. And that's even expanded to advising manufacturers and showrooms on how to position their business through communications.
Wow. Well, it's a big job, and for sure it has changed quite a bit over the years. And maybe you want to touch on that a little bit about how the industry has changed in terms of media, because we are now in this age of social media versus just the traditional media, which was magazines that were in print. So do you want to chat about that a little bit and just share what you see?
Yeah, having worked for a number of those major publications, I knew they meant big impact. They had big impact. When you were in those, in the pages that we're talking about before they all went online, it was very impactful to the businesses that were shared. It meant more jobs. It meant more clients. Sometimes it was so much attention it could break websites. So they had to; these places had to start preparing people for that kind of attention and for that kind of visibility. Now, what's happened is that there is so much opportunity across so many channels that none of them are really the heavyweights anymore. I mean, they are heavyweight in title, but they don't impact. Most of them don't have the impact that they did 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So the idea to me is that that's changed in video. I would say video has come onto the scene pretty quickly. My thought, even, back in 2010 when I wrote my first book, is that you need to work at this to not in spurts and fits, with a consistency that you create relationships that you end up having a presence all the time across a number of different outlets. It's not just one big happening, one big event, or three big events because you worked at it for a month and then you got tired, that you stay with it. So you almost create this cloud effect. And, sometimes it drizzles, sometimes it rains, sometimes it pours, but that's because you're working at it. It's a part of your business.
Right. And it is hard, especially for our industry, for you to find time because you're so busy designing that sometimes it's really hard to work on the marketing piece or the PR piece so that you're getting out there, so that you're getting those clients. And it's really hard to manage all pieces of this business.
That I
So,
know. I know. Especially someone who has a product-based business. And for the first year, we did a full-on gift guide push because that happens in July when you have a product because the editors are working 6 months in advance. And, you would think I would have gotten it together before now to, to do that for my own business. But we finally got organized. We said, we're going to do it. And we committed to doing it. I think part of it is, and the interior designers I advise and that come to me sometimes just for a one-on-one consult, they're not ready for a publicist, but they know they can do something. What we do together is just simplify the approach. Understanding you don't need to know personally 100 editors. You need to begin to create your editor list, who these are people who are good fits for your work, whether they are regionally, nationally, to the trade. Who are these people, and who makes sense to me, not who makes sense in theory, but really, looking at the work that you're doing and matching it to places where you see like work and beginning to create your list, really customizing your list. And when we simplify and create roadmaps, it actually works for starters. People are capable of that, but just getting started sometimes on that seems overwhelming. This can be a 2-hour commitment a week, and it will move the needle if we just stay consistent like that. And
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Consistency is everything. And if people just do it and they start and then all of a sudden it's 3 months later and they're just now getting back around to it, you don't have any momentum if you're just doing it occasionally.
Right. And I get it that we have so much exposure to so many names, and you might be on social media and you're like, oh my gosh, there's an editor, there's another one. And you're kind of trying to grasp at these things, but really the fundamentals of book one, and that was written almost 15 years ago, they still apply. It's like read the publications you want to be a part of. Put two together side by side. You will see there is a formula to the way those go together. Similarly, online, start to look when you see work like yours and you have that feeling like, gosh, that could have been me. That's a good sign. But be realistic, be realistic. Could it have been? Or are we... do your images look like they could just be replace that and belong? That's a good sign. And just looking for those opportunities. One shortcut to this, which I always like to share and remind us that we don't have to start from scratch all the time. But if you have a peer or somebody that's just in front of you who is doing well, I mean, I could rattle off so many designers that either I've just helped nudge along and they've taken it from there, or they've done just a good job on their own. They have a good sense, or they have a communications background or something that just gives them a little extra understanding. But if you see someone, maybe even in your region, who is getting press, look at their press page. Where are they getting press, especially regionally? Look at the bylines. Those are your regional writers and editors. Start there. Get to know them. Look at the work. Look at what they're writing. That's how you begin to create your customized editor lists. They're kind of creating a roadmap in front of you. If your work is really as distinctive as theirs, and And but every designer has their own point of view. But if you think you are ready for those steps, yeah.
Okay. And today, I know things have changed. We talked about that just a little bit. But in the last 3 to 5 years, we've seen so many shifts in the industry and what's available and where you
That's
can
right.
put your work. So, what
Yeah.
is different today than it was 3 to 5 years ago? And what are some of the best practices?
Okay. Let's see. The fact that there are just so many opportunities. You're not looking
Mm-hmm.
at just print media. You're
Mm-hmm.
looking at the online version of that same title.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at their newsletters. You're looking at designers who have blogs or newsletters. You're looking at custom publishing, which there's a magazine that just comes to mind, In Kind. They write about interior designers and feature projects there, but it's a independent publication. Your manufacturers now have newsletters. Some of them have custom magazines.
Mm-hmm.
Urban Electric has the most beautiful magazine, features designers. So that's what I mean when I say there are so many opportunities. Gail, I have seen churches have their own magazines and feature interior designers simply because they went to that church. Your sorority national magazines, I've seen designers get the cover of their national soror, magazine,
Mm-hmm.
alumni magazines. I mean, there is no business that escapes communications anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
they all need content. So when you are operating in beautiful images that can make somebody else's publication look better, usually, and it makes sense, then you're actually very helpful to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I found that it was, especially when I was running my design business, I just made it a point to get to know the editors in the local and
Hmm.
regional magazines.
Hmm.
And I was able to get featured all the time. They would come to me
Hmm.
and maybe they might just do a quote, but at least I was constantly in the magazine. So that was really important
Yes.
when I was running my business,
Yeah.
and that was many years ago.
And that's what I mean by it was a natural, it took effort to
Mm-hmm.
show up and support them. I'm sure you did that if there are
Sure.
opportunities to do that at design centers.
Mm-hmm.
People we advise, I say, just show up and support. They need people filling their seats too. And they want to meet new designers. That is one opportunity where editors are out from behind their seats in front of a lot of designers. It's not the time to pitch an editor, but it's the time to say, hello, thank you so much for bringing this message here. I'm excited to share something with you, in the coming weeks. But it does become this organic, this, normal relationship, especially when you are all of the things I mentioned in Recipe for Press. And some of those would be a quick responder because they're often on deadline. Not a crybaby if they don't publish you or you give them all this information and they just put a little bit of it in. That's still being published, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you, have great images to work with, there's simple things. There are a reason why if you're just pleasant and a pleasure to work with and actually think, is this a good quote? Am I giving good information, for them to
Mm-hmm.
share? That's the kind of designer editors go back to time and again because they're on deadline. They know you'll respond, they're
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. So it really becomes natural. I think one thing you said that is very important is you started with your local and regional editors.
Mm-hmm.
National editors, oftentimes I hear, oh, I want to be in House Beautiful and Elle Decor. You don't just suddenly turn up in House Beautiful and Elle Decor.
Right.
It is a road. It is a journey to those. And they want to see that you've been vetted by your regional editors and that you're in well respected in your own on your own turf.
This is a question that I've heard so many times, and I want to see if this is still true. can designers put the projects that they've shot on their website before getting published in especially national magazines?
Right. This is a question that the designer needs to ask. This is not a yes or no answer, but they need to
Okay.
ask themselves first. How important is it for you, for the designer, to be published, or do you need that project to work harder to get clients first? Because the truth is, no, the editors don't want to see it splashed on your website, and definitely not on your Instagram or social media. They're okay mostly if I've seen designers handle it a little differently, but some of the ways that are really smart is that maybe you put under your projects on your gallery page, you put one image, not a main full house image, but an image, and you say Smith project under press consideration. But
Ah,
you give a flavor, you say it's there. That's and you let your clients know potentially in like the style, or could I see that? Or you just show a very small gallery, but just not main images. If you don't have huge following on social, most of them are not going to be bothered by that. And if it moves so forward and is, if it moves forward and is going to be in a major magazine, they'll just say, could you just take that down for now? But more importantly, they don't want to see it splashed all over social. They will consider that published. So a way to still use part of the project, or to do behind the scenes, put it on stories so it will go away, do smaller vignettes, just try to avoid sharing the whole, doing a whole house tour if you're trying to
sure.
get published.
How does an editor want to receive a pitch?
In an email,
Okay.
always in an email. Even if you DM them, which I would not. But sometimes that could come up casually, or sometimes they may see that story that you just posted like behind the scenes and they may DM you. That's fine. But ultimately, they're going to say, you email me the project. That's step one. I bet you're going to
Okay,
ask,
great.
what does it look like? Because that's a big part of step two.
Sure. Well, should the pitch include?
Okay. It's got to be brief. The more concise, the better. And in the body of the email, I would always include maybe 4 to 6 images of the best images. So it's not your entire catalog from that photo shoot, but basically their eye is going to drop to the image when they open the email and then read. So they'll have some flavor and they'll kind of know if I should read it. The subject of the email should have exclusive pitch, / beach, New Jersey shore project, something like that.
Okay.
So they know what they're receiving and that it's just for them. And then the body of that email is, if you can get that story of the backstory into 2 sentences, like here's a project and a little bit about the owners or the situation that they entered, if it has a story. And then we want to know, almost in bullet points, some of the major things that were done and some of the major vendors, because that might be important to them and the vendors that advertise in the magazine. But it's really about conciseness and getting them. And then the last question is, might you see this as a good fit for your future pages or for your 2025 pages or something like that, that indicates it takes time to place these projects. It's never this though. I think this is a good fit for your pages. There's a difference
That would be
between,
one of the things that hits the
yeah,
delete button for the editor.
yeah. That's when you just know it's might you, because that is the editor's job, is to process it and put together issue after issue that has their point of view and their looking for things to fit into their point of view and to the issue that they're putting together. And that's why I say give them that, respect and acknowledgement of, might this be a good fit for the pages you are pulling together?
Okay, great. Those
Or
are great
I hope
tips.
it's a fit.
Exactly. Is there a best day of the week to pitch?
Yeah, I would always pitch on Tuesday or Wednesday morning. And same with follow-up, because Monday's just lost on all of us and too desperate. Friday, of course, is when we're going to get the energy somehow to put together a pitch, and then you've got it and you are so tempted to send it on Friday. I would just hold it till Tuesday morning, really early.
Okay. Well, and you can set it up if you're using Gmail, you can set
Correct.
up to deliver on
Yeah.
Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock or whatever
Right.
time. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I know you have a resource for this is how do these designers find the editors and their contacts?
We do have a resource. Recipe for Press has a media list specifically for entrepreneurs and interior designers. And we put that together because after speaking at these design centers, inevitably people would come up. I mean, I think somebody even told me, can you please do this? That's how we got a lot of ideas for the
Sure.
pitch wheel also. Like, I can't remember when to pitch, so we created that little tool. It's just, I was trying to create with Recipe for Press the most simple tools that you could use effectively to pitch. So this media list that we've had going for 10 years now is a true labor of love. It is 1,500 names. It's not tens of thousands of names. It's an active list, so we're able to update it in real time and not just do a once a year, because there's so much movement with the editors. So, and it drives my coordinator crazy. She's like, I just put them up there and now they're married and they've changed their name, so their email has changed or something like this. There's just a lot of movement, so it needs to be updated and often, and we do those line by line updates. We have a lot of publicists who are helping us with this, or who are on the ground in New York and some of the bigger cities, and they come to us and share, oh, these are outdated now, or this just happened. They have a new group of editors, because they're using it, because nobody really wants to pull together this list. You try to put interns on it. It just doesn't work out. So we took it on, and it's been a good tool, and it's an annual subscription, and it's very reasonably priced at $150. So that's one of the tools of Recipe for Press. And it's a great way to, that's where you find the correct contacts, their emails, their social handles, and even in the notes, submission notes from them on how to pitch, or here's the portal that we need you to pitch, or whatever they give us after we check in with them. So that's one way. The other way is you do the research, you look at the masthead, you address their social to see what is most active. Sometimes they put them there. Sometimes these are freelancers. There's a whole section that is freelancers, and that's gold, because these freelancers are writing for 15, 20 magazines at any one time. So we just do the work. It's really about being a detective of information.
Well, that's a great service, because I know that, having done this myself in a very small scale when in my own business, has a lot of work, and
It's
just
a lot of
finding the right people. And I never worried about the national publications, because, as you said earlier, I was more interested in getting work. So to me, that was important. But it was also important to have local and regional publications, because that does give you credibility.
Absolutely.
So once you get published, how do you get the most out of it?
That is almost, to me, as significant as the whole path to being published, because you've done all the work and you've gotten published, and you just don't want to let you just don't want it to come out and your mom congratulates you and sends you the issue, and you do one little post and you let it sit flat. That's the time to make it work for you. So you want to create a little plan on how you will get this out into to the world, in kind of how you will drip, like a little bit of a slow drip out into the world for people to see, and to also, because it was a collaborative experience with the writers, the editors, the photographers, you want to thank them, you want to mention them, you want to put the article in your newsletters. I'm sure you encourage designers to have newsletters.
Mm-hmm.
You want to just be a good collaborator. You don't just want to post it once and think, I'm done, because it could really go so much further. You can pull out pictures and then, of course, tag the manufacturers that are in those images, and tag the magazine and the editor and the writer and photographers all over again, every one of those. But that's what I mean, kind of a slow drip. And it's really a slow drip of thank yous. But I do see designers do it well. And when it's well done, it's always not just about me, the designer. It's about the whole team, and giving them, credit. And then what happens is they share, and it takes some time to put together a good, few posts.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You just want to take that time to remember who to thank, and, like that.
Sure. Well, and probably you can do some videos and you can do some social media posts. There are so many different ways you can utilize that and repurpose that content. So
That's right.
I think that's really
And you
important to
can
do too.
come back to it. Sometimes you hit a little dry spell and there's not a whole lot going on. Go back to it. Be creative about how you, that just posting it once don't think you're done there. And you can really maximize it by creatively thinking of how you can share. And again, like some video, and just, being excited about it is fun to see.
All right. So we're going to switch gears and let's talk a little bit about you personally. I know you have a textile line. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I do. After advising a number of different product-based companies as well in the interiors, I had an opportunity come to me to partner in a soft furnishings and furniture company. The name is Aloka. We really started with the trade. We started at High Point, and these are 80-year-old quilts that were hand-stitched in India. They were made of repurposed materials. They were saris originally, and the families would layer them, sometimes 7, 8, layers deep, hand-stitch them together. 80 years goes by. Over the years, they've patched, and these pieces have remained strong. The integrity is there because they were so well made to begin with. And we're coming along and creatively refreshing them with all kinds of different applications ourselves to kind of make them a more modern piece that people are, proud of and enjoying again today, and then also enjoying that they were repositories of stories and makers and memories from so long ago. So they're fascinating pieces of material that we also upholster with and make pillows from.
And they're beautiful. I've seen those in your showroom at High Point Market. So for those of you that haven't seen her line, you definitely should check it out when you're there. And if you haven't been to High Point, you need to go to High Point, because those are places where you can find great resources that are not, you can't shop those.
That's right. That's right. And we're going to be at a brand new space this fall market called 313 Space. It's owned by Schwang, which a lot of your designers probably know and love. And it's going to be a great opportunity to be in front of, designers again, and in a fresh new space there, which is always exciting, because that's what you're looking for. Every market is like, what's new? What's new? Sure. We won't be alone. I think there will be 40 to 50 new vendors.
Okay. Great. I'll have to check that out. Well, let's talk about a couple of other personal things. I think it's fun to touch on that. So what is your biggest life lesson you've learned?
I think one is, whether this is the biggest or not, I don't know, but one is that there are seasons for things. And sometimes we think those seasons, like one might look like failure, when in fact you're transitioning into a new season, or something didn't work out, but the next season built on it. At the moment, it might feel devastating. Or, when I left journalism, it was during the recession, and magazines just went upside down. They didn't have a plan for this. Was the 2008 recession. I don't know how many there have been since.
Not the current one.
No, but it was not a good time, and I didn't see a future in it. The only thing I had ever thought I was going to be was a writer. I loved sharing stories. I could get into other people's things as much as I could now can my own. Now I see that I was building on something that's me now. I have a product-based company. I have the advisory. I have the knowledge, and I love to share it in the same way that I loved to share it when I was writing one by one. So that what felt then like, wow, this is a really brutal end to something, is now blossoming fully.
That's so great. Well, thank you for that share. And at the very end, we always like to end with 3 takeaways that you think you would like to highlight from what you shared with us today.
Okay. I may have forgotten to share the most important thing at the very beginning, so I'm glad I get a chance to do it.
Okay.
One is the why. Why are we trying to get press at all? Sometimes people cannot give me an answer to that. And if you can't, you need to think about it before you put this hard-earned time on it. What do you want it to do for you when you get pressed? Because that will direct the roadmap that you create. So for example, if you need more clients locally, then the House Beautiful placement is not going to get you that. It's the local and the regional placements. And so that makes it a lot easier than to create a roadmap. If you can just tell me or tell yourself, like, when this is published, what do I want to happen? Then that will tell you back what eyes you need to get in front of. So I think that's one takeaway. The second, photography is still king. I see a lot of confusion, however, right now around, I see everybody needs the photographer and the onus is on the interior designer. So before you really sign up for having that project photographed, I would advise and if you plan for that to be published and want it to be published, I would advise to do an editorial buyout so you know that you have the rights to share with those publications. But good photography is the difference between being published and not being published. Sometimes those publications are going to have the budget for publishing. More often than not now, they're going to use the images that you bring to them.
Okay.
And the third is that consistency. If you just work at this, like if you just see this as a slow build, it will come. It will come. I mean, read Recipe for Press so you know what not to do, how not to overwhelm editors. What those little mistakes, that you think you're doing the right thing and it's like sending all the wrong messages. Know those things, but that consistency will end up with results.
Excellent.
And I think people just once that is demystified, I see people get very good results from going at it on their own. And then getting to a place where they want to enlist the help of a publicist. And at that point, they are good partners to a publicist because they're not going to get in the way of that success. They're going to know what it takes to get press. And I think those are my 3.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for being on the podcast. It's a pleasure as always. And it's so much fun to hear all of your adventures. And I encourage you all, go to market for sure. And when you go to market, go look up Amy's showroom. And you said it was a Loca. And we'll make sure that that's in the show notes as well. And go see these beautiful textiles. They are gorgeous.
Thank you for all that you're doing for this community too. I have seen people I think blossom is a great word, but just really grow in themselves and grow in their business over the years. And it's a tremendous resource that you and your team, you and Erin and the team offer. So I'm really proud to be here.
All right. Thank you so much, Amy. It's great to see you as always. And we'll see you at the market, hopefully.
Yes, I hope so.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy, for joining Gail on the podcast. Public relations can be difficult and a long game to play, but persistence usually pays off. If you're starting your PR journey, hopefully this episode set you on the right path. Stay tuned for the next episode where Gail covers social media with social media expert Darla Powell. Apply now for Business Breakthrough Live. Join us in Denver on November 10th and 11th for actionable training that will help you grow your business. Visit thepearlcollective.com/BBL to learn more about this business-changing experience.